Hi everybody, this be Wattles, the ancient city. More specifically, that strange portal thing. Yeah, that thing right there. Did you know that it's kind of already confirmed that it's a portal? Into this video, I'll tell you how I know that, and a whole lot more, because this week's episode of the series that we call Everything is all about the oldest city in the entire game, the ancient city. The ancient city is a structure that generates down in the deep dark. When you find this thing, it's gonna be deep and, yeah, like the name says, it's gonna be dark. Also ancient. Look, I'm gonna put it this way, even if you live under a rock, you've heard about this thing by now, because, well, obviously this thing generates below rocks. Get it? Alright, so nowadays, the ancient city with night vision, it looks like this right here. But did you know that these beautiful, wide hallways and the structures across the city, they did not always look like this. Rewind flashback to February 17th, 2022, experimental snapshot 1 for the deep dark biome. Check this out, the city, the differences, they are subtle, but if you know, then well, if you know, you know. The ancient city, with the structures that we now know and love, officially made it into the game in snapshot 22W13A. The biggest differences between this version of the ancient city and the current version is the hallways, by far. Look at the hallways, they're way more narrow and they're like one layer based. Looking back at this old version of the ancient city, it's almost scary how big the upgrade was. Let's go back to the future. But before we go back to the future, let's go back to the past, like even farther. The concept art stages. The concept art for the ancient city is absolutely amazing. Of course, the whole idea that the devs had is some kind of city that is old, once bustling with life, now completely desolate and lonely. With the ancient city, the devs were pulling inspiration from ancient Mayan and Roman ruins, and you could definitely tell. So here we are, back in the future. The ancient city is looking like this, which is pretty cool. But of course, if you want to, actually look at the ancient city, we're gonna need to find this thing. Let's talk about that. To do this, we will play a little game. Now I'm gonna show you 3 ancient cities in this world, to see if you notice a common theme. If I were to stay directly above the ancient city, but move straight up to the surface, this is what we're underneath. A giant mountain. Down below the ground, at the deepest depths of the world, is our second ancient city. Up here on the surface, again, what are we below? Another mountain. And last but not least, here, down there again, bottom of the world is an ancient city. Up here on the surface, take a quick guess, what is it? Aha, yes, yet another mountain. So there's a clear common theme here. You hop into your survival world and you can't wait to find an ancient city. But how do you find the thing? Well, the best spot to start is going to be a mountain that is in a relatively dry area. So, funnily enough, ancient city right below that hole right there, and there's a big body of water right next to it, so clearly it's not always going to work out. Now, picking a random mountain and digging straight down, it's kind of random, like it's not always going to work. But I mean that again, that's all you got. So this giant mountain over there in the distance, that mountain also marks another ancient city. If we take a look at this area, again, very, very mountainy, a little bit of water, but pretty mountainy. The best way to find an ancient city is to locate a tall mountain in a relatively dry area and dig down. If you're lucky, you find some kind of big cave entrance on the mountain and just head into the caves. Maybe the caves will lead you there on their own. After all, running around in a cave is a whole lot easier than digging through blocks manually, even if you have the best tools in the game. Rivers, streams, and lakes, those are typically fine, but big oceans, it's highly unlikely. For more on locating the things in the wild update, check out this video next, after this one. So hopefully eventually you're able to locate one of these things. Once you locate it, it'll be dark, so maybe bring torches or night vision. Get a little bit of light going on and you'll be able to see way more clearly. One interesting thing about the ancient city, it will always generate at the same Y levels. Major parts of the ancient city, they're going to be around a -50 or so, every single time. Taking a look at the bigger picture of the ancient city, we kind of have 3 separate things going on inside of this thing. We've got that main central frame thing, a very interesting suspicious portal, then we've got walls all over this thing, and then in between the walls, we've got different structures. If we're inside of the city looking for loot, it's in between the walls, 100% of the time. You will never find a chest generating, unfortunately, inside of any of these walls. These walls really just break up the city and are a good way to move around. Of course, all over the city, you're going to need to watch out for the shriekers and the sensors. They work together to basically snitch on you. Fortunately for you, you have wool all over the place inside of the city. Maybe you could use the walls to walk around quickly. If the floor is wool, you don't need to worry about sneaking. The ruined buildings. The ruined buildings are the home of all of the loot inside of the city. Now we're going to talk about the loot, but first up, let's talk about the structures. If you're super into the ancient city, then you want to check out every single individual structure that makes up this thing, good news. So this was like a couple months ago at this point, but I did make a video checking out every single structure of the ancient city. It's 18 minutes long. There are a lot of structures that make up the ancient city. 3 separate centerpieces, like 20 or so individual building ruins, a couple different entrance pieces, and like 1.5 million different pieces of walls as well. If you're super into the ancient city and you want to know literally everything about it, I recommend checking out this video also after this one. There's no way at all that I would have enough time to go over every single structure again in this video. If I tried to do that, this video would literally be 40 minutes long. So spoiler alert, the centerpiece, there's actually no loot in the middle. Well, unless you want to count a golden apple sometimes. If centerpiece number 2 generates with your city, you'll find a golden apple up here in the chest. The ancient city is made up of so many unique blocks that you won't be able to find generating anywhere else in your world. Cracked deep slate bricks, deep slate bricks, deep slate tiles, chiseled deep slate tiles, polished deep slate, it's all here. Soul lanterns. This is the only place you're going to be able to find soul lanterns generating in the overworld. And speaking of souls, soul sand. You could also find soul sand generating inside of this city. This is the only place you'll find soul sand in the overworld. You've got some unique colors of wool generating inside of the city. Pretty sure you can find these things inside of the Woodland Mansion though. But the big one, the skeleton skulls. You can find skeleton skulls generating inside of the city, and it's actually pretty common too. They'll be in the same spots every single time. Oh yeah, and candles. This is also the only structure that uses candles. Your skeleton skull locations are in the back of the altar building, right there in the hallway, and on this small pillar that will be in different states of decay, sitting on the back of this thing, or the front of this thing, or the side of this thing, depending on which way you look at it. Every time, right there. The structures that make up the city are really cool, but this is a unique and interesting one. This one is called the icebox. On one side of the icebox, you'll have a staircase that walks up and a note block trap. Be careful to not set that up. Then we have a pressure plate and a trap door. Down inside of this thing, we've got a loot chest. Inside of this loot chest, we've got cold things. This time it's completely frozen, but sometimes you'll have food. Speaking of loot, let's take a look at it actually. So icebox loot table. The icebox loot table is going to be completely separate from the rest of the ancient city loot table. The icebox specifically can generate with these things inside of that loot chest. Now the suspicious stew, every single time it's going to have one of 2 effects. It's either going to be bad and give you 5 to 7 seconds of blindness, or it's going to be good and give you 7 to 10 seconds of night vision. The only way to find out is going to be eating that suspicious stew. Good luck. Now the rest of the ancient city loot table. Oh boy, we've got some meh things in here like bones and coal. We've got some average things in here like amethyst shard. And then we have some absolutely overpowered things like enchanted golden apples inside of this table too. If you're looking for enchanted golden apples, this might be the best structure in the entire game to find these things. Alongside the other side music disc, the enchanted golden apple is going to be one of the rarest things you can find in the city. However, there are so many loot chests inside of this city. On average, you're going to have to open about 12 chests to find an enchanted golden apple, but 12 chests inside of this entire city, I mean, it should be doable. How many chests do you think this ancient city has? This is just a random ancient city that I found, by the way, and in total, I just counted, not including the icebox chest, I found 30 chests inside of this entire ancient city. Yeah, that's slightly more than 12. The special unique items inside of the ancient city, new to the wild update, are going to be this disc fragment and the echo shard. If you're into the echo shard and the recovery compass, then check out the compass episode next. Another new thing you'll be able to find here, the swift sneak. You'll have about a 23% chance to open up any chest in the ancient city and find a book with swift sneak on it. The enchanted tools that you're going to find inside of the ancient city are going to be good as well. You can find a pretty good set of diamond leggings, not like this right here, or a pretty good diamond hoe, not necessarily like this one right here, inside of the city too. Is the loot worth it? Well, I don't have the answer to that one. It's totally your call. It might be. It might not. The ancient city centerpiece. This is actually sitting on top of a top secret, confidential room. How do you open it? Every city will have one single centerpiece. There are 3 different centerpieces that you can find. I think the centerpiece is called centerpiece number 2. On the middle, on the top of the centerpiece, we have a chest with a golden apple inside of it. Take the golden apple out of the chest and eat the golden apple. Give it a second, listen, and you'll hear doors open. Quickly run off to the front of this thing, jump down, turn around, and you'll find the secret doors. Get inside of this thing quickly. The doors will close eventually. Inside of this thing, every time, aside from this room right here, you're going to have basically the same thing. On the back side over here, we're going to have a target block with a redstone contraption. Then we're going to have a lectern with a redstone contraption. We're going to have a redstone block, redstone lamp, redstone contraption, And then finally over here, we're going to have, I guess, a couple random hallways. I don't really know what they were doing with this corner. Maybe it's a hint of the future. The front room that changes is going to be the door locking mechanism. This mechanism will detect frequencies higher than 8. So like eating. Fun fact, this is also the only place you'll be able to find the target block generating. Kind of cool. Centerpiece number 1 is going to look something like this, except, inside of an ancient city. The trigger block is the chiseled to deep slate block. Go over here and maybe like jump on top of it, make any vibration, and the door on the front will open. The door's going to be basically in the same spot every time. The lock room inside of this one looks a little bit something like this. Centerpiece number 3 is interesting. We've got a couple walls up top and a chiseled deep slate block right there. All you need to do is walk in here, in between the walls or anywhere near there really, and then the skulk sensors should hear you. Be quick, this one's kind of fast. The locking mechanism this time is a maze of redstone repeaters and torches and wires. Unfortunately for us today, the biggest question will be left unanswered. The ancient city. What is it for, if anything? Is it kind of like the stronghold, a structure that leads to a different dimension? Or is this place really just an ancient city, and there's really not much to it anymore? Maybe at one point there was something cool, but now it's just empty. A video theorizing on the ancient city, then the center portal, what it's actually for, is definitely a video for another time. That's a really big topic, but in the intro I said that this thing is basically confirmed to be a portal. How do I know that? Well, for that one, let's take a look at one of the structures inside of the city, specifically this one right here. This thing is very clearly a small recreation of the giant thing in the middle. If this thing generates in perfect condition, it will look something like that. If you didn't see it before, you definitely see it now. Let's rewind things back to snapshot 22W14A, one of the snapshots for 1.19. In that snapshot, we saw a little bit of ancient city cleanup. You see, there were some duplicate files inside of the ancient city structure folder. One of those duplicate files happened to be this structure right here. One version of this structure was named the Small Portal Statue. Nowadays, we've got a new name for this small piece of the puzzle, but Small Portal Statue. What would they call it that if? Why would they call it that if this wasn't meant to be the big portal statue? I'm gonna leave the answer to that one up to you today. What do you think? Is there any chance that this thing in the middle of the ancient city is a portal, or is it really just for looks? When answering, keep in mind that this is the only place you're gonna find reinforced deep slate in the game, a block that you cannot obtain in survival. That's maybe something they would do if they wanted you to go to a certain spot to, actually access some kind of portal. And also, if this thing was literally just for nothing, I mean, why wouldn't they have just used any of the other million types of deep slate, right? Interesting. The ancient city, Minecraft's newest, biggest, and definitely hardest to find structure in the entire game. That's everything. If you enjoyed this episode of the Everything series, definitely destroy like, and if there's a topic you'd like to see next, request it down below. Patron gang at Darkland Studios CK, thank you so much for the support. In this video, I did give you some tips on the ancient city, but I've got way more. If you'd like to see a complete guide on actually raiding and dealing with the ancient city, then just let me know down below. It's me, Waddle. I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye, everyone.